All right, welcome back. Let's begin. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I didn't feel the pain at first. I felt weight, like someone had stacked concrete blocks on my chest and told me to breathe anyway. The air tasted like plastic and antiseptic. My eyes wouldn't open, my body didn't answer, but my hearing perfect, clear as ever. Someone said my name, not with worry, with irritation. Is he always like this, my father asked, causing problems even when he's unconscious, that voice. Conrad Mercer, same sharp edge it always had. The kind that could cut glass and still complain and the glass was in the way. I tried to move a finger, nothing. Tried to clear my throat, nothing. Panic flickered, but I pushed it down. Training kicks in even when everything else shuts off. Slow your breathing, stay present, gather information. He was brought in without ID, a doctor said. Male, calm, neutral, gunshot wound, non-military issue gear, no uniform, no wallet. Of course, my father said. That tracks. Footsteps. Another voice. Higher. Sheila, my stepmother. She smelled expensive even through the haze. Floral perfume layered over something sour. So this is him, she said. This is Alex, like I was a used couch someone left on the curb. I wanted to laugh. Or choke. Hard to tell which. Yes, ma'am, the doctor said. He's in a coma, but it appears temporary. Brain activity is strong. We're optimistic. Optimistic. Funny word. My father never liked optimistic people. Said they lacked discipline. Well, Conrad said, exhaling like he'd just been handed a parking ticket. How long is he going to be like this? Hard to say, the doctor replied. Hours, maybe a day or two. His vitals are stable. Stable, another word my father hated. Stable meant not impressive. Sheila cleared her throat. Doctor, I hope you understand. My husband is running for city council. This kind of thing, she gestured vaguely toward my bed, isn't ideal. I was still, silent, trapped in my own skull. And they were already managing optics. He's had a difficult past, Conrad added. Drug use, depression. We tried helping, rehab, tough love, nothing stuck. None of that was true. But it sounded good, clean, easy to digest. The doctor hesitated. I see no signs of drug abuse in his system. Conrad chuckled, actually chuckled. He's good at hiding it, always has been. There it was, the old move. Say it confidently enough and people stop questioning. I focused on the ceiling I couldn't see, counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. I'd been shot less than 12 hours earlier during a job I couldn't acknowledge. No uniform, no dog tags, civilian hospital. Worst case scenario, but manageable. Family showing up. That wasn't part of the plan. When can we remove the ventilator? Conrad asked casually, like he was asking when dinner would be served. The room went quiet. I'm sorry, the doctor said. If he doesn't wake up, my father continued. How long do we legally have to keep him on life support? That landed. Hard. I felt it like a punch to the ribs. Not fear, recognition. This wasn't concern. This was calculation. We're not anywhere near that conversation, the doctor said carefully. Your son is not brain dead. He's not terminal. Still, Conrad pressed. Hypothetically. My father loved hypotheticals when they benefited him. Sheila stepped closer to the bed. I felt the mattress shift. Her nails tapped the rail. Click, click, click. He always did hate hospitals, she said. Said he never wanted to be kept alive by machines. Didn't you, Alex? I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up and tell her to get her hands off me. Instead, my heart rate jumped and a monitor beeped faster. Oh, Sheila said lightly. See, he agrees. The doctor frowned. That's an involuntary response, or stress, Conrad said. From being alive. There it was, that familiar feeling, being talked over, reduced, rewritten. I'd spent my whole childhood being the inconvenient truth in my father's clean narrative. Not the son who followed his path. Not the one who fit the photo ops. I was the one who left, the one who didn't ask permission, the black sheep. Even now, flat on a hospital bed, I was still ruining his image. A nurse entered. Younger, quieter. She checked my IV, glanced at the monitors. Vitals are improving, she said. He may regain consciousness soon. She said it like it mattered. Conrad sighed. Unfortunate timing. The nurse stiffened. Sir, nothing, he said. Just thinking out loud. That nurse lingered a second longer than she needed to. Her eyes flicked to my face. Something in her expression changed. Not pity. Suspicion. Good. Someone was paying attention. Dr. Conrad said, lowering his voice, though not enough. Let's be clear. Alex doesn't have a home, no job, no dependents. If this becomes prolonged, we don't want unnecessary measures taken. Unnecessary. Like my existence. I felt the anger then. Hot, focused. The kind that sharpens instead of blinding. I'd been trained to endure worse than this. Pain, isolation, silence. But hearing your own father talk about you like a liability, that hits different. I wondered if he believed his own story, or if he'd just told it so many times it became easier than the truth. The doctor finally said, "We'll do what's medically appropriate." "That's all we ask," Sheila replied quickly. "We trust you." Trust, another word they used when they meant control. They moved away from the bed, footsteps toward the door. Relief tried to creep in, but it didn't last. Conrad stopped. He turned back. I felt his presence before I heard him. The air shifted. Closer. He leaned in. Close enough that I could smell his aftershave, same brand he'd worn since I was 10. "Listen," he said. Quietly. "I don't know if you can hear this, but if you can, this is probably for the best." His voice dropped, lost its public tone. "You've been a disappointment your whole life. At least now, you might finally be useful." I felt his breath on my ear. "Don't fight it." Then he straightened up and walked out like he hadn't just signed my death warrant in his head. The door closed. The room settled back into mechanical noise. Beeps, whirs, controlled breathing that wasn't mine. Inside, I made a decision. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, but I was still here, still thinking, still listening. And I knew one thing for sure. Whatever my father thought he was planning, I wasn't done yet. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been lying there completely powerless, listening to someone who's supposed to protect you, decide you're more valuable as a problem than as a person? My father's footsteps faded down the hall, but his words stayed behind. They settled in my chest heavier than the pressure of the ventilator. I focused on staying calm. Panic wastes oxygen. Anger burns it faster. The door opened again, not long after. Lighter steps this time. No urgency. No concern. "Sheila," a nurse said, quietly visiting ours. "I'm family." Sheila replied, already inside. "And he can't hear us anyway." Wrong on both counts. I felt the mattress dip as she leaned closer. Not to check on me, to inspect. Her perfume hit first. Sweet, too sweet. Then the sound of fabric shifting. She was going through my things. My bag was on a chair near the wall. A beat-up duffel with a torn strap. I'd carried it through 3 continents. It looked like trash to people who judged value by labels. "Oh wow," Sheila said, laughing under her breath. "This is it, this is all he owns." The zipper opened. Slowly, deliberately, I pictured it clearly. The inside wasn't impressive. A spare shirt, toiletries. A paperback with a cracked spine. A notebook, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed success. She scoffed. "Conrad," she called toward the hallway. "You were right, he really is broke." My father's voice answered from just outside the room. "I told you," she rummaged deeper. I heard paper slide against paper. "Oh," she said. The tone changed. Not excited. Curious. "What's this?" I knew before she finished unfolding it. The insurance document. It wasn't new. It wasn't secret in the way people think secrets are. My mother had taken it out years ago, long before she died. Long before my father remarried. It was her way of making sure I'd never be completely unprotected. I'd forgotten it was even in the bag. Sheila didn't. $2 million, she said slowly. Accidental death. Silence. Then my father stepped back into the room. "Let me see that." Paper rustled again. He cleared his throat. I could hear him doing math in his head. "Fast, efficient." "Well," he said, "that's unexpected. Unexpected. That was one word for it." Sheila's voice dropped. "If he dies, that goes to you, right? You're next of kin." "Yes," Conrad said. No hesitation. "I'm his father." There it was, the moment the math stopped being abstract. "But only if it's accidental," Sheila said. "Coma counts complications," Conrad replied. "Still accidental." They stood there inches from my bed discussing my death like a zoning permit. Sheila folded the paper carefully. "We didn't know he had this." "No," Conrad said. "We didn't," which meant no one else did either. Sheila glanced at me, really looked this time. "He looks peaceful." I wanted to bite her. "He always was dramatic," Conrad said. Probably enjoying the attention. I was barely breathing and he still managed to insult me. Sheila walked to the window, then back to the bed. Her heels clicked. Once, twice. She was thinking. That was never a good sign. You know, she said slowly, this could solve a lot of problems. Conrad didn't respond right away. The campaign, she continued. The loans, that development deal you rushed into. This money could clean everything up. Still nothing, and she added quieter now. It's not like he has a future. No job, no family, no one depending on him. She said it gently, like she was being reasonable. Conrad exhaled. We can't do anything illegal. Of course not, Sheila replied immediately. I would never suggest that. Pause. But if the doctors say there's no quality of life, she went on, and he's expressed wishes in the past. Conrad nodded. I couldn't see it, but I heard it, the subtle shift in his voice. He did say things, he said, about not wanting to be a burden. That was a lie. I'd never said that. But it was the kind of lie that sounded true if you wanted it to be. And Sheila added, with his history of depression, another lie. A convenient one. The door opened. The same nurse from before stepped in, young, sharp eyes. She froze when she saw Sheila holding my paperwork. Those are his personal belongings, the nurse said. You shouldn't be going through them. Sheila smiled, tight, polite, fake. I'm his stepmother. That doesn't matter, the nurse replied. We have protocols. Good. Someone else in the room still had a spine. Conrad stepped forward. We're just trying to understand his situation. The nurse looked at me, at the monitors, at my face. He responded earlier, she said. Slightly, he may wake soon. Sheila's smile vanished. That's good, she said, but it came out flat. The nurse adjusted my IV, checked the screen again. I'll notify the attending physician. As she turned to leave, Sheila spoke up. Actually, could we speak with whoever's in charge of his care? The nurse stopped. Why family matters, Sheila said. Sensitive ones. The nurse hesitated. Just a beat too long, then nodded. I'll see what I can do. When the door closed again, the air shifted. Heavier, focused. You hear that, Sheila said. He might wake up. Conrad stared at the monitor. The steady rhythm annoyed him. It always had. Order without his control bothered him. Not if we're careful, he said. That was the moment. The exact second when this stopped being talk and turned into intent. Sheila's voice softened. We need to act before he can contradict us. Conrad didn't argue. He always made things difficult, he said. Even as a kid. I remembered that kid. Quiet, observant, always trying not to be a problem. Apparently I failed. Sheila placed the insurance paper back into my bag. Neatly, like it belonged there. We should mention his past to the doctor, she said. Frame it the right way. Conrad nodded. I'll handle it. He leaned closer to my bed again. Not as close as before. Not intimate. Evaluative. You should have stayed gone, he said quietly. This would have been easier. I listened. Stored it. Every word. They stepped back. Sheila smoothed the blanket like she was tucking in a child. Her hand lingered a second too long on my arm. Rest, she said softly. You've done enough. The door opened again, this time with authority behind it. Different footsteps. Slower, heavier. A man's voice. Older, confident. You wanted to speak with me? Yes, Conrad said immediately. Thank you for coming, doctor. As the conversation began to shift as terms like history and wishes started floating through the room, I stayed still, completely still. They thought they'd found an asset. What they didn't realize was that assets can hear. The doctor cleared his throat and the room rearranged itself around his authority. Chairs scraped. My father straightened his posture. Sheila folded her hands like this was a parent-teacher meeting. I'm Dr. Evans, the man said. Older voice, controlled. The kind that expected obedience. I've reviewed the preliminary notes. Conrad stepped in smoothly. We appreciate you taking over, doctor. This has been difficult. Evans hummed. So I hear. I couldn't see his face, but I could hear the shift, the slight warmth in his tone when he spoke to my father. Familiarity, recognition, that was new, and not good. Sheila and I are very concerned, Conrad continued. Alex has had issues for years, depression, substance abuse. He said before he wouldn't want to live like this. Evans didn't challenge that. Not directly. I see no documentation of prior psychiatric treatment, he said. It was informal, Sheila cut in. Family handled. We didn't want to make it public. Of course not, would have looked bad. Evans stepped closer to my bed. I felt the air move. He's showing signs of neurological response, he said. Reflexive but present. That doesn't mean awareness, Conrad replied. Too quickly, no, Evans said. But it means potential. Potential. That word again. Sheila leaned forward. Doctor, we don't want him to suffer. If this turns into months, years. She let the sentence hang. Evans filled it in for her. There are protocols, he said. Advanced directives. Family consent. I'm his father, Conrad said. I know what he wanted. I wanted to spit blood. Evans paused. I'll need time to evaluate. Of course, Conrad said. Take all the time you need. What he meant was, take the right amount of time. The nurse from earlier came back in. Sarah. I caught her name on her badge when she leaned over to check my IV again. Her fingers were steady, her eyes weren't. Doctor, she said quietly. His blood pressure improved overnight. Pupillary response is stronger. Evans glanced at the monitor. Briefly, noted, he said. We'll keep him sedated for now. Sarah stiffened. Sedated? He wasn't scheduled for. I'll update the chart, Evans cut in. Thank you, dismissed. Sarah didn't move right away. Her hand lingered on the rail. She looked at my face again. I wanted to give her something, a twitch, anything. But my body stayed locked. She exhaled and stepped back. Visitation will be restricted, Evans announced. Until further notice. Conrad nodded. That's for the best. And Evans continued. I'll be adjusting his medication to prevent agitation, like I was the problem. I felt it minutes later. The cold burn in my arm as something new slid into my bloodstream. Faster than the others, heavier. The world didn't fade, it thickened. My thoughts slowed like moving through water. Panic tried to surface again, but the drug pushed it down. Wrapped it tight, I focused. Counting, breathing, stay ahead of it. Dr. Sarah said, her voice sharper now. That dosage, I said, I'll handle it, Evans replied. No patients left. Silence. Footsteps retreated. One set, then another. The door closed. I was alone with them. Sheila let out a breath she'd been holding. That was close. Conrad watched the monitor. My heart rate had slowed, smoothed out, too smooth. He won't wake up like this, Sheila said. That's the point, Conrad replied. They stood there calm now, confident. He always ruined timing, Sheila said. This way at least he won't interfere. The drug kept pressing, my limbs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I couldn't fight it head on, I had to ride it. Security will keep others out, Conrad said. I don't want any surprises, especially those friends, Sheila added. The ones who showed up earlier, I remembered that. 2 men in jeans and jackets, quiet, observant. They hadn't stayed long. I'd assumed they were local law enforcement checking on an unidentified gunshot victim. Apparently my father noticed them too. I made some calls, Conrad said. Hospital administration owes me favors. This floor is locked down. A wall. That's what he was building. Around my bed. Around the truth. Another wave of sedation rolled through me. My thoughts blurred at the edges. Sheila, Conrad said, go home. Get some rest. What about him, she asked. I'll stay, Conrad replied. Make sure everything goes smoothly. Sheila hesitated, then leaned down and kissed my forehead. Her lips were cold. Sleep tight, she whispered. The door opened, closed. Now it was just him. My father pulled a chair closer and sat down. The sound of it scraping across tile made my jaw tighten. You always were stubborn, he said. Even when you were little. He didn't sound angry, just tired, like this was a chore. You could have been something, he continued. If you'd listened, if you'd stayed. I listen now, had no choice. I don't understand why you hated me so much, he said. After everything I gave you. That one almost made me laugh. He leaned back. The chair creaked. This is cleaner. Easier. No more messes. My vision pulsed. Black at the edges. The drug was winning ground. Don't worry, Conrad said. I'll take care of things. Footsteps again. Heavy ones. Security. I heard radios crackle outside the door. Lockdown. I sank deeper, but I didn't disappear. Somewhere under the weight, under the silence, something clicked. If he thought isolation made me powerless, he'd never understood me at all. The pressure in my veins settled into a dull, controlled numbness. Not sleep, not unconsciousness, a holding pattern. I stayed there counting the rhythm of the monitor when heavier footsteps approached from the hallway. These weren't hospital shoes. They stopped outside my door. Visiting hours are over, a security guard said. I'm not visiting a man, replied. His voice was low, calm, familiar in a way my body recognized before my brain did. "I'm here to see a friend." "Name," the guard asked. "Mike," the man said. "Mike Sullivan." I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear. Focus. Commander Sullivan, Bear. I'd worked with him long enough to know when he was lying. This wasn't his real name, and this wasn't his real posture. He sounded casual, almost sloppy, which meant he was being careful. "That room's restricted," the guard said. "Family only." "Yeah," Sullivan replied. "That's the problem." I heard a second guard shift his weight. Radios crackled. Inside the room, my father stood up. I could tell by the scrape of the chair. He'd been waiting for this, or something like it. "What's going on?" Conrad called out. The door opened. Sullivan stepped in. He looked wrong on purpose. Scruffy beard, old jacket, boots that didn't match. He smelled like engine oil and cheap coffee. Anyone who didn't know him would have written him off in half a second. Conrad did exactly that. "Who are you?" my father demanded. Sullivan glanced at me. Just once. Fast, professional. His eyes didn't linger. Didn't give anything away. "I'm a friend of Alex's," he said. "He asked me to check on him if anything ever happened." My father laughed. Loud, sharp. "That's funny," he said. "Alex doesn't have friends like you." Sullivan nodded slowly. "He does." "No," Conrad snapped. "He really doesn't." Security stepped closer. One on each side of Sullivan. "This man is not to have visitors," Conrad said. "Doctor's orders." Sullivan tilted his head. "Which doctor?" "That's none of your business," Conrad replied. Sullivan looked at the guards. "You might want to check his chart. He's improving." One guard hesitated. Just for a second, Conrad saw it. "My son is a drug addict," he said loudly. "He's violent when he wakes up. This man is trespassing." That was enough. "Sir," the guard said to Sullivan, "you'll need to leave." Sullivan didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't resist. He just looked at my father. Really looked at him. The air in the room changed. Even sedated, I felt it. That quiet, lethal focus that comes right before things go bad. Conrad mistook it for weakness. "Get out," my father said. "Before I call the police." Sullivan nodded. "You should." Then he turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. Conrad exhaled, satisfied. "Unbelievable," he muttered. The kind of people he associates with. He stepped back toward my bed. Smoothed his tie. "See," he said to no one in particular. "Handled." He picked up my phone from the bedside table. The one thing he hadn't touched yet. The screen lit up as he pressed the button. "No passcode," he scoffed. "Figures." I wanted to smile. I didn't use passcodes. Conrad scrolled. Contacts, messages, nothing obvious, no family, no employers, no names that meant anything to him. He frowned. "Empty," he said. Just like his life. He turned and tossed the phone toward the trash can. It missed the rim and hit the wall instead. Plastic cracked. The screen went dark. Conrad kicked it the rest of the way into the bin. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the phone didn't need a screen. It had already done its job. My father returned to his chair, sat down, relaxed. Outside the room, the hallway quieted again. Security resumed their bored stance. Nurses passed by, glancing and then away. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time was slippery under the drugs. Then something changed. Not loud, not obvious, subtle. The building hummed differently, like the air itself had been tuned to another frequency. Down the hall, somewhere far below, glass shattered. Not an accident. Not a drop. A deliberate break. A pause followed. Too clean, then shouting, short, cut off. My father stood up again. "What was that?" he asked. The lights flickered once. Not off, just a blink. The monitors didn't fail. Power stayed on. But something else had taken control. A low alarm sounded. Not a fire alarm. Deeper, more controlled. Red lights snapped on along the ceiling. Conrad froze. "What's happening?" he demanded. No one answered. Footsteps echoed from the elevator. Heavy, coordinated, too many to count. My father backed toward the door. "Security," he shouted. The door swung open. 6 men stepped in. They didn't look like hospital staff. They didn't look like police. Black gear, tactical, faces covered, weapons up but not pointed at me. They moved with precision, no wasted motion, no noise beyond boots and fabric. Conrad's voice cracked. "What the hell is this?" One of the men raised a hand and the others fanned out. One covered the door, one checked the room, one went straight to my IV. "Don't touch him," Conrad yelled. "That's my son." The man at my IV ignored him. He checked the line, the bag, the dosage. His posture stiffened. "Who authorized the sedation?" he asked. Conrad stepped forward. "You can't be in here. I'm calling the police." A seventh man entered the room. No mask, no disguise. Commander Sullivan, clean-shaven now, uniform pressed, rank insignia clear. "Colonel," he locked eyes with my father. "Step away from the bed," Sullivan said. Conrad stared at him. "You," he said. "You're the vagrant from earlier." Sullivan didn't react. "Last warning. This is my son," Conrad snapped. "You have no authority here." Sullivan turned his head slightly. "Actually," he said, "I do." One of the masked men spoke quietly into his radio. "Confirmed. That's him." Sullivan nodded. Then he looked back at my father. "You've been interfering with a protected service member," he said. "And you've made a very expensive mistake." Conrad's face drained of color. "No," he said. "That's not possible. He's unemployed. He's nothing." Sullivan stepped closer to my bed. He didn't touch me, just stood guard. "He's the commanding officer of my unit," Sullivan said. "And you tried to bury him." My heart rate jumped. The monitor beeped faster. Sullivan glanced at it. "Just once." "Easy, General," he said quietly. "We've got you." My father's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's not," he stammered. "That's not who he is." Sullivan finally looked at him the way he deserved. "That's exactly who he is," he said. The room tightened the way it does when people realize they're no longer in charge. My father stood there, hands half raised, looking for authority that had already left him. "This is a mistake," Conrad said. "You can't just storm into a hospital." Colonel Sullivan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "We didn't storm," he said. "We were invited." One of the masked men handed him a tablet. Sullivan glanced at it, then nodded. "Protected status confirmed," he said. "Chain of command notified." My father laughed once. Too loud. "Protected from what?" "He's a nobody." Sullivan didn't answer that. He turned to the medic at my IV. "Get him off that sedative," he said. "Negative," Dr. Evans said from the doorway. He'd slipped back in during the confusion, trying to look calm. "He's under my care." Sullivan finally looked at him. Not angry. Clinical. "You authorized a dosage that suppresses neurological recovery," Sullivan said. "On a patient with improving vitals." Evans adjusted his glasses. "I followed protocol." "Show me," Sullivan said. Evans hesitated. "Just a fraction too long." My father seized the moment. "Doctor, you don't have to answer to him. I'm his legal guardian." Sullivan turned back to Conrad. "You are, yes," my father said quickly. "And I'm making decisions in my son's best interest." Sullivan studied him. "Then you won't mind formalizing that." He nodded to one of the soldiers who produced a folder. Thick. Official. "This is a do not resuscitate order," Sullivan said. "Hospital standard. If you truly believe your son wouldn't want life-saving measures, you can sign." My father's eyes flicked to the paper. Then to Sheila, who had slipped back into the room behind Evans. Her face lit up just slightly. "That would settle everything," she said softly. I felt the drug pressing harder now, like it sensed the moment. My thoughts slowed again. My chest felt heavy. Each breath was work. "This is ridiculous," Conrad said. "You people don't get to test me." "No one's testing you," Sullivan replied. "We're documenting." Evans cleared his throat. "If the family wishes," Sullivan cut him off. "You're done talking." Evans went quiet. The folder was placed on the bedside tray. The pen rested on top. Innocent, ordinary, my father stared at it. "You said he might wake up," Sheila murmured. "This avoids complications. Complications, like me opening my mouth." Conrad swallowed. "If I sign this," he said, "they can't revive him." "That's how it works," Evans said quickly. Too quickly. Sullivan didn't correct him. I felt my heart thud, slower. The monitor followed suit. "This is what he would have wanted," Sheila said. Another lie. The last one they'd need. Conrad picked up the pen. I wanted to scream. My body didn't move. My lungs fought for air through the tube. The pen hovered. "You're sure?" Conrad asked, not to anyone in particular. Sheila nodded. "This is mercy. Mercy, from people who'd never shown it." The pen touched paper. The sound was quiet. Just a soft scratch. But in my head, it roared. My father signed his name. The instant the pen lifted, my chest seized. Sharp. Sudden. Like a fist closing around my heart. The monitor screamed. A long, flat tone cut through the room. My vision tunneled. Not black. Bright, too bright. He's coding, one of the soldiers said. Sullivan stepped forward. Start, don't, Conrad shouted. You can't touch him. We signed the order. The medic froze, hands hovering inches from my chest. Evans stepped in front of him. He's right, Evans said. The DNR is valid. My heartbeat stuttered, then stopped. Silence filled my head. Heavy, absolute. I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about my father's face. The way his jaw clenched. The way his hand tightened around Sheila's. Not grief, relief. I thought about all the times he told me I wasn't enough, all the times I'd walked away instead of fighting back. Anger flared, hot, clean. I wasn't done. Stand down, Evans said to the soldiers. Sullivan didn't move. He looked at the monitor, at the line that didn't move. Then he looked at my father. You just signed a document to let your son die, he said. For money, that's not, Conrad started. The building hummed again, deeper this time, like a switch being thrown somewhere far above. The lights dimmed, not off. Emergency red filled the room. What's happening? Sheila asked, her voice sharp now. An alarm sounded. Not medical, not fire, military. Sullivan tapped his earpiece. Green light, he said. The medic didn't wait. He moved. Evans stepped in his way. You can't. One of the soldiers grabbed Evans and pinned him against the wall. Fast, efficient, no drama. Step away, Sullivan said again. Last warning. The medic tore the DNR off the tray and ripped it in half. Conrad lunged. You can't do that. Sullivan didn't look at him. I can. The medic pressed paddles to my chest. Clear, a jolt ripped through me. Pain exploded. Real, grounding. My heart kicked. Weak, then again. The monitor beeped. Once, twice. Air rushed back into my lungs. Harsh, burning. I gasped. My eyes flew open. The first thing I saw was the ceiling, then red light, then Sullivan's face unmasked, steady. Easy, he said. You're back. I sucked in another breath. It hurt. I welcomed it. My head turned slightly, just enough. I saw my father frozen in place. Sheila clutching his arm. Evans restrained against the wall. The pen lay on the floor, broken in half. My heart beat stronger now, louder. I was alive. And everyone in the room knew exactly who had tried to make sure I wasn't. Air scraped my throat on the way in. It felt raw, like I'd swallowed sand. My chest burned where the paddles had hit, but the pain was clean, honest, proof. Easy, Sullivan said again, a hand hovering near my shoulder without touching me. You're stable, stable. I took another breath anyway, slower this time. The ventilator was gone. The room sounded different without it. Quieter, too quiet. The monitor beeped. Steady now, no one spoke. My father stood frozen near the foot of the bed. Mouth slightly open. Eyes locked on the screen like it might change its mind. Sheila's nails dug into his sleeve. Evans was pinned to the wall by a soldier who hadn't broken a sweat. The silence stretched. Thick, uncomfortable. I turned my head just enough to look at Conrad. My neck protested. I ignored it. He noticed. His face twitched. Not relief, not joy, fear. You're not supposed to be awake, he said. I tried to speak. My throat refused. The sound that came out was a rasp, ugly, human. Sullivan leaned closer. Don't push it. I nodded once, then I looked back at my father. The silence got louder. Sheila recovered first. She always did. This is insane, she said. You can't just override medical orders. Sullivan finally addressed her. You're standing in a restricted security operation, she scoffed. In a hospital. Yes, he said. Where you attempted to end a protected officer's life. That's not what happened, Conrad snapped. His voice cracked halfway through. We followed procedure. Procedure. The word landed wrong. It always had. The medic finished adjusting my IV, this time with a clear bag that felt like clarity spreading through my veins. Toxin neutralized, he said quietly. Vitals improving. Toxin. Evans flinched. I watched him. Watched the way his eyes avoided mine. Watched the way his jaw tightened. He knew. Memory surfaced in fragments pushed up by the adrenaline. Being 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table while my father talked over me. Being 15, blamed for a fight I didn't start. Being 20, told not to come home if I wasn't going to follow his rules. All those moments had sounded like this room. Quiet, final, like nothing I said mattered. But this time the silence wasn't mine. Sullivan stepped aside as another man entered. Older, taller, white hair cut short. His presence changed the air instantly. Even the soldiers straightened. A general, he didn't look at my father, didn't acknowledge Sheila, didn't spare Evans a glance. He walked straight to my bed. The room snapped to attention. I tried to sit up. Failed. He raised a hand. "Stay where you are, General," he said. "General." The word hit Conrad like a slap. The general stood at the side of my bed and saluted. "Welcome back," he said. "The country owes you one." I swallowed. My throat still hurt, but the words came easier this time. "Just doing my job, sir." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "That's what I'm here to confirm." Behind him, Conrad stumbled back a step. This is a misunderstanding," he said. "My son never." "Your son," the general said calmly. "Still facing me is one of our most effective field commanders." Conrad's face strained. "No, that's not possible." I met his eyes. It was possible. It had always been possible. He just hadn't wanted it to be true. Sheila shook her head. "You're exaggerating. He's been unemployed for years." Sullivan turned slightly. "Ma'am, you threw away a phone that triggered a classified emergency beacon." Sheila blinked. "A what?" "The kind that doesn't activate unless someone's life is in immediate danger," Sullivan said. "From someone they trust." Her mouth opened, closed. Evans tried to speak. I didn't know." The soldier tightened his grip. Evans stopped. The general finally turned. He looked at Conrad the way a surgeon looks at an infection. "You authorized a do not resuscitate order," the general said. "On false pretenses." "I'm his father," Conrad said weakly. "I had the right." "You had access," the general corrected. "You abused it." My heart rate spiked again. Not fear, recognition. The general nodded to someone outside the room. 2 men stepped in. Military police. Calm, efficient. They didn't grab Conrad. Not yet. The silence returned. Heavier this time. Final. I stared at the ceiling. Red lights still pulsed softly. Emergency power hummed. The building felt like it was holding its breath. Pain crept in along my ribs. I welcomed it. It kept me present. Sullivan leaned down. "You okay?" I nodded. Then shook my head. "Still here. That's enough for now," he said. I closed my eyes for a second. Not to escape, to focus. When I opened them, Conrad was still there, still staring, like he was waiting for me to disappear again. I didn't. I lifted my hand, slow, trembling, but deliberate. Sullivan noticed immediately. He stepped aside. My father flinched when I pointed. Just a little. I found my voice. It was rough, broken, but it carried. "You signed," I said. The words landed like stones. Conrad shook his head. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect you." I almost laughed. Almost, from what I asked. He didn't answer. Sheila tried again. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We're family." Family. The word tasted old. I breathed in, let it out. The room waited. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You stood there," I said, each word costing effort, and waited for my heart to stop. The monitor beeped. Steady, unforgiving. No one interrupted. The general nodded once, almost imperceptibly. I let my hand fall back to the bed. The strength drained fast now, adrenaline fading. Sullivan stepped back in, blocking my father's line of sight. "General needs rest," he said. The general agreed. "We'll handle the rest." They moved. Orders passed quietly. Radios murmured. The machine of accountability started turning. As the room shifted around me, as faces rearranged and authority changed hands, one thing stayed the same. My father didn't look angry anymore. He looked small. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't working in his favor. The red lights kept pulsing steady and indifferent, as if the building itself had decided to stop pretending this was a normal hospital floor. Boots moved with purpose around my bed. Radios murmured in clipped phrases I'd heard 1,000 times before. Clear, hold, secure. I stayed still, letting the room settle. "Hallway is clean," someone said. "Elevators locked," another voice replied. Sullivan leaned in just enough for me to hear him, without anyone else needing to. "Whole floor's ours." I nodded once. My body felt heavy again, but this time it was exhaustion, not paralysis. There's a difference. One traps you, the other lets you rest. Across the room, Conrad tried to regain his footing. He smoothed his jacket like it might give him authority back. "You can't do this," he said. "This is a public hospital," it was Sullivan said. For about 5 minutes. A soldier stepped up to the door and turned the handle outward, locking it from the inside. Another placed a small device on the wall near the frame. No wires, no blinking lights. Quiet control. Sheila's voice wavered. "You're overreacting," no one responded. Dr. Evans shifted against the wall, the soldier's forearm firm across his chest. "This is highly irregular," Evans said. "You're interfering with medical care." The medic at my side didn't even look at him. "You poisoned a patient to suppress recovery." I adjusted sedation. Evans snapped. With a dosage that would have stopped his heart, the medic replied. Flat, factual. Evans went quiet again. The general stepped aside as 2 more men entered. Different uniforms, dark jackets. No insignia I recognized from the military. Federal. One of them flipped open a badge. Not for show, just enough. "Conrad Mercer?" he asked. My father nodded automatically. "Yes, sir, we're going to need you to stay where you are." Conrad laughed. A short, hollow sound. "On what grounds?" "Attempted insurance fraud," the agent said. "Conspiracy and suspected homicide." Sheila gasped. "That's insane." The agent didn't look at her. "We've been monitoring your financial activity for months." That got Conrad's attention. What he said. "That's impossible." The agent glanced at a tablet. "Casino debts, shell companies, undisclosed loans." Conrad's mouth opened, closed. And the agent added a sudden interest in a life insurance policy you didn't know existed until today. Silence again. I watched my father's shoulders sag. Not in guilt, in calculation. He was still looking for an angle. "You can't prove intent," Conrad said. Sullivan finally turned fully toward him. "You ordered a DNR. I exercised my rights." "You did it while your son was chemically restrained," Sullivan said. "After lying about his medical history." The general nodded. "And during an active classified operation." Conrad blinked. "Classified?" The general didn't elaborate. One of the agents stepped closer. "Sir, we'll take it from here." They moved in sync. One to Conrad's side, one to Sheila's. Sheila recoiled. "Don't touch me, ma'am," the agent said calmly. "You're not under arrest. Yet." That word hung in the air. Evans tried one last time. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "I was pressured." The soldier holding him tightened his grip slightly. "You accepted favors." Evans swallowed. "I save it," the agent said. "You'll have time. They didn't cuff anyone yet. Not in front of me. Not now. This wasn't about spectacle." Sullivan stepped back to my bedside. "You good?" I nodded, then shook my head. "Define good." He almost smiled. "You survived." That wasn't the question. He exhaled. "We're moving you." "Where somewhere quieter," he said. The medic adjusted the bed. Monitors disconnected and reattached to portable units with practice speed. No rush, no wasted motion. As they worked, my father finally looked at me again. Really looked. "You did this," he said. His voice was small now, thin. I met his eyes. "No," I said. "You did." The agent cleared his throat. "General Mercer," I turned my head slightly. "Yes. You'll be asked to give a statement when you're able." I nodded. "I'll be able." He studied me for a moment, then nodded back. "We'll coordinate with your people." "My people," Sheila repeated faintly. Sullivan answered that one. "The ones you tried to keep out." The bed began to roll, slowly, smoothly, toward the door. As they moved me, the room shifted perspective. The people who'd towered over me earlier now stood back, boxed in by uniforms and authority that didn't answer to them. We passed Conrad, close enough that I could hear his breathing, shallow, uneven. He said my name, not sharp this time, almost pleading. I didn't respond. The hallway was lined with soldiers. Hospital staff pressed against the walls, silent, eyes wide. No phones, no whispers, just stunned faces, watching a reality snap into place. As we reached the elevator, Sullivan leaned in one last time. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." "By lying there?" I asked. "By surviving," he said. The doors slid open. Inside, the lighting was normal, white, calm, like nothing unusual had happened. As the bed rolled in and the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of my father through the narrowing gap. He wasn't in control anymore, and for once there was nowhere left for him to hide. The elevator doors closed with a soft thud, sealing out the noise. The movement was smooth, controlled. Someone had taken over every system that mattered. I focused on breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow, intentional, vitals holding, the medic said beside me. Heart rhythm stabilized. Good enough. The elevator opened onto a different floor, quieter, no posters on the walls, no families pacing, just clean lines and people who knew exactly why they were there. They rolled me into a room that didn't look like a hospital room. No clutter, no flowers, no television humming in the corner, just equipment, efficient, purpose-built. As soon as the bed stopped, hands went to work. Tubes adjusted, lines swapped, new monitors attached. Faster, smarter, no hesitation. These aren't civilian meds, I said, my voice still rough. Sullivan leaned over me. No, good. The sedative haze finally started to lift. Not all at once, layer by layer, like someone opening a window in a smoke-filled room. A woman stepped into my field of vision, short hair, calm eyes, rank on her collar. General Mercer, she said. I'm Major Chen, trauma lead. I nodded once. Nice upgrade. She gave a brief smile. You earned it. She injected something into my IV. This one burned. Sharp, clean, counteragent, she said. Flushes the rest of what they gave you. My muscles twitched. Pain flared along my spine, then faded. My thoughts snapped into focus. Welcome back, she added. I took a deeper breath. My chest protested but complied. Where are they? I asked. Contained, Sullivan said. All of them. I closed my eyes for half a second. Not relief, just confirmation. When I opened them again, the general was standing near the foot of the bed, hands clasped behind his back, watching quietly. You're going to feel worse before you feel better, he said. Story of my life, sir. That got a small huff of amusement. You scared the hell out of us, he said. Beacon lit up like a flare. I dropped the phone, I replied. Guess it didn't mind. No, Sullivan said. It really didn't. The general nodded. You were compromised. Family access. Medical manipulation. We're reviewing every failure point. Start with my last name, I said. No one argued. The door opened again. Conrad was brought in, not dragged, not cuffed, escorted. 2 agents at his sides, Sheila behind him, pale and silent. My father looked smaller in this room, stripped of context. No office, no audience, just fluorescent light and the sun he'd nearly buried. His eyes locked onto mine. You, he said hoarsely. You're awake. I didn't answer. Sullivan stepped between us. You'll speak when spoken to. Conrad ignored him. They told me you were, he swallowed. They told me you were a nobody. I met his stare, steady. They told you what you wanted to hear, I said. Sheila finally spoke. This doesn't change anything. He's still your father. The general turned to her. Ma'am, this isn't a family discussion. Conrad stepped forward before anyone could stop him. I had the right, he said. I signed the papers. He pulled the DNR from his jacket. Crumpled now, torn at the edge. Sullivan took it from his hand without asking. Looked at it once. Then he tore it in half. Slowly, deliberately, he dropped the pieces at Conrad's feet. Your rights ended, Sullivan said, when you treated his life like a payout. Conrad's knees buckled. He caught himself on a chair, breathing hard. You don't understand, he said. I was under pressure. Debts, deadlines. The agent beside him spoke for the first time. You were under investigation before today. Conrad froze. What, your finances? The agent continued. Your associates. Today just sped things up. Sheila shook her head. This is all a misunderstanding. Major Chen glanced at her. You helped falsify medical history. Sheila opened her mouth, closed it. The general stepped forward. General Mercer, he said. Yes, sir. Are you able to give a statement? I considered it. My body was still shaky, my chest still hurt, but my mind was clear. Yes, the general nodded. Then we'll proceed. The agents moved, cuffs clicked. Not loudly, just enough. Conrad stared at my hands. You do this to your own father. I tilted my head slightly. You already answered that question. The agents guided them toward the door. Sheila started to cry. Not quietly, not convincingly. Conrad didn't say anything else. When the door closed behind them, the room exhaled. Sullivan let out a slow breath. That went better than expected. I nodded. Low bar. Major Chen finished her checks. You're lucky, she said. Another minute and we'd be having a very different conversation. Luck's overrated, I replied. I had backup. She smiled. That too. The general stepped closer, lowered his voice. You want to press charges? It wasn't a question. Yes. Good. He straightened. Rest. We'll handle the rest. As they filed out, Sullivan lingered. You did good, he said. I didn't do anything, I replied. He shook his head. You stayed alive. Sometimes that's the whole mission. I lay back against the pillows. My heart beat strong now, loud enough to drown out everything else. For the first time since I'd been brought into that hospital, I wasn't fighting to exist. I was choosing to. The room felt different once they were gone. Not quieter, clearer, like static had finally dropped out of the signal. I shifted against the pillows and immediately regretted it. Pain flared across my chest and down my ribs. Real pain this time. Honest pain. The kind you can work with. Major Chen noticed. Don't be a hero, she said. I'm bad at not being one, I replied. She snorted and adjusted the bed. Give it a day. Sullivan stayed near the door, arms crossed, scanning out of habit. Some things don't turn off just because the danger's past. Military police have them in custody, he said. FBI's taking point on the fraud and conspiracy charges. I nodded. Evan's license suspended, Sullivan replied. He's talking. Of course he is. The general came back in this time alone. He pulled a chair up and sat like a man who didn't need to rush. You understand what happens next, he said. I testify, I replied. They go to court, he nodded. It won't be quick. It doesn't need to be. He studied me for a moment. You okay with this? That was the real question. I looked at the ceiling. White, unremarkable, safe. I'm okay with the truth, I said. Whatever it costs. The general stood. That's what I needed to hear. He left me with Sullivan. Paperwork's already moving, Sullivan said. Your statement, financial records, medical logs. I want copies, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Everything? Yes. He nodded once. I'll bring them. The hours blurred after that. Meds, vitals, short conversations. Long silences that didn't feel heavy anymore. Later, when they finally let me sit up, Sullivan placed a folder on my lap. Thick, heavy, familiar weight. Intel compiled this over the last 6 months, he said. Your father's debts. Gambling. Real estate shell games. I flipped it open, slowly, page after page of numbers and signatures and patterns that told the same story from different angles. He planned it, I said. Yeah, Sullivan replied. He did. I turned another page. Hospital emails, recorded calls, a timeline that matched my memory almost perfectly. He knew I could hear. I said quietly. Sullivan didn't argue. I closed the folder. My hands shook a little. Not fear. Release. Can you sign? Sullivan asked, handing me a pen. What am I signing? Statement of cooperation, he said. An authorization. For what? For us to stop protecting him. I didn't hesitate. The pen scratched across the paper. My signature, clean, legible. I'm done carrying him, I said. Sullivan took the folder back. Good. Later that evening, they wheeled me through a different corridor. Not rushed, not hidden, just controlled. Nurses stopped and stared. Some nodded, some looked away. A few smiled like they'd been holding something in for hours. Outside, the air was cool, clean. Night had settled in. A black SUV waited near the entrance. Home, Sullivan asked. I thought about it. About the house I grew up in. The walls that had always felt too tight. The silence that had never been peaceful. No, I said. Somewhere else. He smiled. I figured. They loaded me in carefully. The door closed with a solid thump. As the vehicle pulled away, I watched the hospital fade into the background. No lights flashing now. No alarms. Just another building full of stories that wouldn't be told. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new one. Secure. Simple. A message popped up. Case status updated. I didn't open it. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. Not to escape, just to rest. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running from something or proving anything. I was just done. Done being the black sheep. Done being the convenient lie. Done being the asset someone else thought they owned. The SUV slowed, turned, stopped. Sullivan opened the door. Welcome home, he said. This place didn't look like much. Plain building, quiet street. No memories attached to it yet. Perfect. As they helped me inside, I felt something settle into place. Not triumph, not revenge, closure. My father would have his day in court. Sheila would answer questions she couldn't talk her way out of. Evans would lose everything he traded his ethics for, and I would heal. That was the real price of betrayal. Not prison, not headlines, but losing access to the person you thought you could control forever. I lay back on the bed they'd set up for me, listening to the steady sound of my own breathing. No machines forcing it. No one deciding whether it was worth continuing. Just me. Before I let sleep take over, one thought stuck with me. If the people who were supposed to protect you ever decided you were more valuable gone than alive, would you stay silent, or would you choose yourself and make them face the consequences? Share what you think in the comments, and if stories about justice, boundaries, and taking your life back matter to you, make sure you're subscribed. I used to believe family was the last line of defense, the place you could fall back to when everything else failed. I didn't even question it. It felt automatic, like gravity. You don't test gravity, you trust it. That belief almost killed me. For a long time, I thought what happened in that hospital was an exception, an extreme case. Something so rare it didn't apply to regular life. But the more distance I got from it, the clearer it became. Nothing about it was sudden. It was just the end of a pattern I'd ignored for years. People like to imagine betrayal as loud, explosive, someone yelling or storming out. In reality, family betrayal is usually quiet, polite. It hides behind phrases that sound reasonable. We know what's best for you. You're too sensitive. After everything we've done for you. Those words don't sound dangerous. That's why they work. Growing up, I was always the one who didn't quite fit. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't reckless. I just didn't follow the script my father wrote. And in families like that, independence doesn't look like strength. It looks like disrespect. So the pressure starts small. A comment here. A decision made without you there. Your story retold in a way that makes you smaller. You tell yourself it's not worth fighting over. You stay quiet. You compromise. And every time you do, the line moves. By the time I was lying in that hospital bed, the line had moved so far that my life had become something other people felt entitled to manage, even end. That's when I learned the difference between love and access. Love cares about your agency. Access just wants proximity and control. Family can have one without the other. Blood doesn't automatically grant someone the right to decide your future, your body, or your worth. That idea makes people uncomfortable, especially in cultures that treat family loyalty as sacred. But loyalty without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's compliance. One of the hardest things to accept was that my father didn't suddenly become cruel. He had always been that way. I just hadn't wanted to see it, because seeing it meant I'd have to change how I related to him. And change feels like loss. Here's the part no one likes to say out loud: sometimes the most dangerous people in your life aren't strangers. They're the ones who know your history, your weaknesses, and exactly which buttons to push because they installed them. That doesn't mean you cut everyone off at the first conflict. It means you pay attention to patterns instead of excuses. A healthy family can disagree without erasing you. A healthy family can hear no without punishment. A healthy family doesn't need you to be smaller to feel bigger. If every disagreement ends with you doubting your memory, your motives, or your sanity, that's not love. That's control, dressed up as concern. For a long time, I told myself enduring it was maturity. That being patient made me the bigger person. What it really made me was available for harm. Boundaries changed everything. Not the dramatic kind people post about online. Quiet ones. Internal ones. The kind where you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. A boundary doesn't require permission. It doesn't need to be justified to the person crossing it. It's a decision you make about what you will and won't tolerate. Here are 3 signs you might need. 1 with family, even if that thought scares you. First, if they consistently make decisions about your life without including you, then get angry when you object. Second, if your pain is treated like an inconvenience or a liability. Third, if love seems conditional on obedience. None of that makes you ungrateful. It makes you aware. Another hard truth: setting boundaries may not fix the relationship. Sometimes it exposes it. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will call you selfish the moment you draw one. That reaction tells you everything you need to know. When I stopped trying to be understood by my father, I didn't become cold. I became clear. And clarity is something manipulative dynamics can't survive. You don't owe access to someone just because they share your last name. You don't owe silence just because speaking up would make things uncomfortable. And you definitely don't owe your life to anyone who sees it as a tool. I wish I could say this lesson came without cost. It didn't. It cost me the fantasy that my family would one day become something it never was. But losing a fantasy is cheaper than losing yourself. If you're listening to this and something feels uncomfortably familiar, pause there. Sit with that feeling. It's not disloyal to notice harm. It's not betrayal to protect yourself. Family should be a place where you're allowed to exist fully, not a system you have to survive. And if you've ever had to ask yourself whether the people closest to you would choose you or choose what they gain from you, what do you think matters more? Keeping the peace or keeping yourself whole? For a long time, I believed silence was proof of character. I thought keeping my mouth shut meant I was disciplined, mature, and in control. I was proud of how much I could take without reacting. I told myself that staying calm made me different from the chaos around me. What I didn't understand back then was this silence doesn't automatically mean strength. Sometimes it just means you're making yourself easier to ignore. I learned that lesson the hard way. In my family, silence was rewarded. If you didn't challenge decisions, you were easy. If you didn't push back, you were reasonable. If you swallowed your anger, you were the good one. And every time I stayed quiet, I was told I was handling things the right way. No one mentioned the cost. Silence has a way of shrinking you over time, not all at once. Slowly. You stop correcting people when they misrepresent you. You stop explaining yourself when you're misunderstood. Eventually, you stop trusting your own perspective because no one ever acknowledges it. That's how people lose agency without realizing it. I used to think speaking up meant starting a fight, that if I said what I actually thought, things would explode. But the truth is, things were already exploding. I just wasn't allowed to see it. Silence didn't keep the peace. It kept the imbalance. Here's something nobody tells you early enough: people who benefit from your silence will call it maturity. People who are threatened by your voice will call it aggression. Neither label has anything to do with the truth. The moment I couldn't speak for myself, when decisions were being made about my body, my future, my life, that was the end result of years of practice staying quiet. I had trained the people around me to believe my consent was optional, and that realization was brutal. Speaking up isn't about volume. It's about presence. It's about making it clear that you exist in the situation, that your perspective matters, and that you are not a blank space others can fill in for their convenience. One of the most damaging myths we're taught is that endurance equals virtue, that if you can tolerate more than everyone else, you're stronger. In reality, endurance without boundaries just teaches people how much they can get away with. Strength isn't staying silent when you're being erased. Strength is deciding that erasure isn't acceptable anymore. Another hard truth waiting to be understood is a losing strategy, especially with people who have already decided who you are. You can explain yourself perfectly and still be ignored. You can stay calm, logical, respectful, and it won't matter if the other person isn't listening in good faith. That's when silence becomes self-betrayal. Losing your voice doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in 1,000 small ones. When you choose not worth it over honesty. When you let things slide because you're tired. When you convince yourself that your discomfort is less important than someone else's comfort. Eventually, you look around and realize you've been living in a story where everyone else speaks for you. Finding your voice doesn't mean confronting everyone all the time. In fact, constant confrontation usually backfires. The real power comes from being selective and strategic. Here's what I wish I'd known earlier. First, your voice is a tool, not a weapon. You don't use it to hurt people. You use it to define reality. To say, this happened, this is how it affects me, and this is where I stand. Second, documentation matters more than confrontation. Write things down, save messages, keep timelines, not because you're paranoid, but because memory gets rewritten when power is uneven. Facts anchor you when emotions get twisted. Third, not everyone deserves access to your voice. Some people don't want dialogue. They want dominance. With them, clarity and distance are more effective than explanations. The biggest shift for me was realizing that I didn't need permission to speak. I didn't need the perfect wording or the right moment. I didn't need to wait until everyone was calm and receptive. My right to speak didn't depend on how it made others feel. Silence protects systems. Voice protects people. That doesn't mean shouting. It doesn't mean ultimatums. It means refusing to disappear. It means saying no when no is the truth. It means correcting the record even when your hands shake while doing it. There's also this uncomfortable reality: once you start using your voice, some relationships won't survive. Not because you became unreasonable, but because they relied on your silence to function. That loss can hurt. It can feel like failure. It isn't. It's information. When I finally stopped minimizing myself, I didn't become louder. I became clearer. And clarity attracts a different kind of respect. Not from everyone, but from the right people. If you've been quiet for a long time, speaking up will feel wrong at first. You'll second-guess yourself. You'll wonder if you're overreacting. That's normal. That's what happens when you've been trained to doubt your own voice. Start small, say one honest sentence, set one boundary, correct one lie. You don't need to reclaim everything at once. Your voice doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. So if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in it, if you've been praised for being easy while feeling invisible, ask yourself this: how much of your life has been shaped by what you didn't say, and what might change if you finally decided your voice was worth hearing? For a while, I thought justice would feel better than it did. I thought once everything was exposed, once the truth was documented, charges filed, consequences set in motion, I'd feel lighter, vindicated, like something inside me would finally click into place. That didn't happen. What happened instead was quieter. Justice closed a chapter. It didn't heal the wound. And that distinction matters more than people admit. For a long time, I believed healing would come from being proven right, from watching the people who hurt me face consequences, from seeing them finally understand what they did. That belief kept me emotionally tied to them longer than I realized. Here's the truth no one warns you about: if your healing depends on someone else's regret, you've handed them control one last time. I didn't need my father to apologize. I didn't need him to understand me. I didn't even need him to admit what he'd done. What I needed was distance, real distance, not the kind that still checks for updates or waits for closure that never comes. Walking away whole doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means refusing to let the hurt keep negotiating your future. There's a popular idea that forgiveness is the final step of healing, that if you don't forgive, you're stuck. I don't believe that anymore. Forgiveness can be powerful, but it's optional. It's not a requirement, and it's definitely not a shortcut. What actually mattered was acceptance. Accepting that some people will never take responsibility. Accepting that some families don't change, they just rotate blame. Accepting that closure is something you give yourself, not something you wait to receive. Once I accepted that, something shifted. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, trying to say the perfect thing that would finally make them see me. I stopped wondering if I'd been too harsh or too quiet or too much. I stopped editing myself in imaginary arguments that never led anywhere. That mental space didn't get filled with anger. It got filled with peace. Redefining victory was the hardest part. We're taught that winning looks like dominance, like the other side losing, like some dramatic moment where everything balances out. Real victory didn't look like that at all. It looked like waking up without that familiar knot in my chest. It looked like making decisions without factoring in someone else's reaction. It looked like realizing I didn't need to prove anything to anyone who'd already decided my value. Walking away whole means you don't take their damage with you. That doesn't mean you forget. It means you stop organizing your life around the memory of what they did. You don't build your future as a reaction to your past. You build it because you finally can. One of the most freeing moments for me was realizing I didn't want revenge anymore, not because I'd become softer, but because I'd become stronger. Revenge still ties you to the people who hurt you. It keeps them relevant. It keeps them central. I didn't want them central anymore. Distance is often misunderstood as cruelty, especially in families. People will say you're cold, ungrateful, dramatic. They'll say things like, but they're still your family. What they rarely ask is whether that family was ever safe for you. Sometimes distance is the healthiest form of love you can choose for yourself. And sometimes it's the only way to stop repeating the same cycle. Another truth that took time to settle in healing isn't linear. Some days I felt strong and grounded. Other days, something small, a smell, a phrase, a tone would pull me right back. That didn't mean I was failing. It meant I was human. Healing doesn't erase memory. It changes your relationship to it. The memory stops being a command. It becomes information. I also had to learn that peace can feel boring at first. When you've lived in constant tension, calm feels unfamiliar. You might even mistake it for emptiness. It isn't. It's just space you're not used to having yet. Give yourself time to fill it with things that actually belong to you. If there's one thing I wish I could tell anyone listening to this who's still stuck in the middle of it, it's this: you don't have to stay connected to people who only know how to hurt you, just because you share history. Shared history doesn't guarantee shared future. You're allowed to outgrow roles you were never meant to play forever. You're allowed to choose environments where you don't have to earn basic respect. And you're allowed to define family by behavior, not biology. The real revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's standing up intact and realizing they no longer get access to you, your time, your energy, your identity. Walking away whole doesn't make you heartless. It means you finally treated your life like something worth protecting. So if you've made it this far, if you've carried a story like this quietly wondering whether choosing yourself makes you selfish, ask yourself this when you imagine a future where you feel calm, free, and fully yourself. Who isn't there anymore? And what would it take for you to let that be okay? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if stories about reclaiming your life, setting boundaries, and choosing healing over chaos resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.
Final note: this story is a work of fiction created by artificial intelligence to heighten drama and emotion. But the valuable lessons we discuss are entirely real and continue to happen to many people every day. If this style isn't for you, that's perfectly okay. Please feel free to look for other content that better suits your needs. 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 Better suits